So a fake news presenter
My name is Gloria Porca.
with over 80 million subscribers is more trusted, credible, and entertaining than anything CNN has to offer, and people wonder why the legacy media hates PewDiePie. Now, I know that PewDiePie isn't a journalist and mainly just plays video games and laughs at memes, but that only underscores the media's rampant insecurity. They're so threatened by the fact that he occasionally talks about important issues like Article 13 or free speech, or that he occasionally satirizes pedantic, progressive, woke stupidity.
Preferred pronoun.
That the mere prospect alone of someone with that much reach contradicting mainstream media narratives is terrifying to them. The mere presence of someone with so much influence, especially over young people, who they don't completely control, gives them nightmares.
Old school media does not like internet personalities because they're scared of us.
In an age of ruthless cultural conformity, someone like PewDiePie isn't supposed to exist, which is why they've tried to tear him down over and over again.
Last episode, I decided to draw a bunch of memes, and it upset some website that I never heard about, saying that I am now leaning into my new far-right following, because drawing memes is a political statement, everyone. Everyone knows that. Everyone knows that. Oh, PewDiePie he drew the Pepe meme. I don't like it, man. Block.
And freak out when he so much as likes a tweet. If you put the average number of views an episode of Pew News receives up against every cable news show in America, he completely obliterates them. He gets more than double or triple the views of any of the top corporate news shows.
When Felix realized that Pew News has more viewers than Vox, which makes Pew News a mainstream media! I mean, I already knew this. This is why they're so goddamn salty.
The media is so frightened of and unable to understand the rise of independent YouTubers, they're even going after James Charles. The left has also made the hysterical mistake of conflating Gen Z's fixation with edgy, offensive humor with what they absurdly believe is a literal fascist takeover of society by Nazis. And they've woven PewDiePie into this ridiculous, contrived moral panic.
You are promoting ignorance, racism, genocide, anti-Semitism. These are all things that you are putting forward when you are doing anything that promotes PewDiePie.
To the point where he now trolls them by provoking their paranoia every chance he gets.
Superior white. Jesus Christ, what kind of car is this? I am buying it! No, I'm just kidding. I'm kidding.
The war on PewDiePie is emblematic of the corporate media's wider endeavor to strangle and deplatform their competition. To be successful on YouTube, you need to be interesting or fun and have a personality. Journalists who work for the mainstream media don't have personalities. So instead of competing with independent creators on YouTube, the mainstream media is just bullying YouTube to censor its competition by breaking its own algorithm. And here's the latest example. Buzzfeed wrote a story whining about how conspiracy theory content is still being recommended by YouTube. And the very next day, YouTube announced that they would be changing their algorithm to remove conspiracy theory videos from recommended videos. But what does Buzzfeed equate with conspiracy theory content? Anti-social justice warrior or misogynist clips, Ben Shapiro, Jordan Peterson, and Prager University. What does any of that have to do with fake moon landing stuff or flat earth conspiracies? Nothing. The left has become so shrill and intolerant that conspiracy theory, hyper-partisan or hateful content basically covers the entirety of right-of-centre opinion and commentary. And once again, BuzzFeed is abusing its platform to lobby for its competition to be censored and silenced. And YouTube immediately caves into their demands at the expense of their own independent creators, ensuring videos published by giant corporations rank high, while content from independent creators is buried by the algorithm. Having already been caught gaming their algorithm to heavily favour left-wing narratives on hot-button issues such as abortion, Count Dankula's channel also got totally demonetized after he was mentioned in a BuzzFeed article about demonetization. I mean, it's not enough for users to be met with a wall of mainstream media videos at the top of search results. Now they're directly inserting links to CNN at the head of the page. They have to rig the game, because when it's a level playing field, they lose. So now all these journalists are crying on Twitter because they got laid off. BuzzFeed just fired dozens of employees, with 15% of its workforce facing termination. Verizon is cutting 800 jobs from its media division, which includes AOL, Yahoo News, and the Huffington Post. March 2018.
Our goals for this month were less than 50% white authors. Check!
January 2019.
Like so many talented and lovely journalists, I was laid off today. For those who are wondering, HuffPost opinion, the entire section is being eliminated.
0% white authors. Check! Huffington Post does the 10-year challenge. However will we cope without your fascinating opinions on gender politics and romantic comedies? The beautiful, diverse, inclusive baby we built from scratch is gone! It's not a baby, it's just a cluster of ideas. I'm glad it was aborted, but forgive me for having little sympathy for journalists losing their jobs, when those same journalists habitually abuse their own platforms to deplatform, publicly shame, and hound other people out of their jobs. Journos flood the zone with stories about how this is a bad person who deserves to lose their job. Also, journos, why are people laughing about us losing our jobs? Forgive me for having little sympathy for journalists losing their jobs, when those same journalists try to ruin the lives of children for smirking, when those same journalists incite violent hate mobs against teenagers because the mere sight of a MAGA hat triggers them into panic attacks.
The MAGA teens are bad, but you know who's worse? The adults who took them to a misogynist political event wearing racist political paraphernalia.
Hi all, so some sad news. As of this morning, HuffPost opinion section is no more. I and the rest of the team have been let go.
Forgive me for having little sympathy for journalists losing their jobs, when those same journalists expose young women, who aren't even political, to the threat of being murdered by Islamic terrorists simply because they don't like their mother's politics. But we shouldn't laugh, because there's a big difference between having no sympathy for journalists losing their jobs and celebrating journalists losing their jobs, because that would be crass, wouldn't it? That would be very immature. Oh, what the hell?
To dunk on laid off new staffers is gross. Don't kick people while they're down. That's a cowardly move.
Says the idiot who literally gets paid to deplatform, get fired, and remove the income of people who he falsely labels Nazis.
I'm getting ratioed for pointing out that it's disturbing some people are celebrating the layoffs of journalists.
Says the same guy who spent the best part of a year abusing his own platform at CNN to deplatform an entire competing news organization. There's no secret to BuzzFeed, no data science, no metrics, no tricks. It's just really specially talented people who make great stuff. Really? By great, are you referring to BuzzFeed's endless series of completely fake news stories, its nauseatingly cringeworthy, unoriginal listicles, or the endless sewer pipe of mindless, nihilistic clickbait trash that passes for its YouTube content? The 37-year-old laid-off journo smells of cat litter, spends the day triggered, cried when Hillary lost, has no children, has a useless gender studies degree, thinks all frogs are Pepe, uses Harry Potter books for life metaphors, can't code. Why are all these journalists getting fired? Why is mainstream digital media hemorrhaging money? Because they lost a ton of their readership by pandering to fringe, obscure social justice narratives, which in turn led to a big loss in ad revenue, which in turn then forced them to attack popular creators like PewDiePie in an effort to generate hate clicks and to feed the mob with rage bait like they did with the Covington high school kids, which in turn only made the digital mainstream media way more unpopular. Most of these websites also lost a huge chunk of their traffic by abolishing comment sections because they couldn't dare have their content challenged by dissenting opinion. Distrust in media has also continued to grow because Trump derangement syndrome led to them getting stories wrong again and again and again.
I believe there is a special dedicated section of hell just for people with anime Twitter avatars who tell laid-off journalists to learn to code.
Learn to code. So virtually no one got banned on Twitter for encouraging school shooters to kill the Covington Catholic kids. But tell laid-off journalists learn to code and your account gets terminated. Oh, but it's okay for the media to tell blue-collar Americans who lost their jobs due to deindustrialization the same thing. GOP are Nazis. Meh. Catholics are racist. Crickets. Conservatives are Neanderthal misogynists. True. Taunted student in red hat has punchable face. Lol. Learn to code.
Violation of Twitter rules of conduct. Your account has been suspended for intolerant hate!
I mean, what do most journalists even do these days? Sit on Twitter all day looking to manufacture fake news narratives about people being outraged. Insider is doing an experiment where its journalists aren't allowed to pitch a story which is solely based on Twitter reactions. It's gonna be a slow news week for them.
Anyone telling journalists to learn to code today, I have a piece of unsolicited advice for you. Swan dive into Vesuvius.
Maybe that's what you should have done before you smeared an ICE agent as a Nazi because you don't understand what tattoos mean. Also, have you considered learning to code? 2019 has already produced 3 giant fake news hoaxes, and we're barely 3 weeks in. You guys have truly earned the title of fake news. Much of the media has dispensed with impartiality or ethics, and is now just a blunt partisan weapon to bludgeon anyone who dare strays from the progressive reservation. As Caitlin Flanagan writes, talking about the New York Times, you were partly responsible for the election of Trump because you are the most influential newspaper in the country, and you are not fair or impartial. Millions of Americans believe you hate them, and that you will casually harm them. The same corporate press that smeared me personally for days by falsely claiming I doctored the Jim Acosta video.
It wasn't doctored. They gave a close-up view. That's not doctoring.
Was virtually silent when a leftist at a mainstream station in Seattle deliberately doctored footage of Trump's Oval Office speech. The same activist journalists who abuse their corporate platforms to get their adversaries banned from the internet, who partner with NGOs and left-wing activists to get their adversaries banned from the internet, are now crying because they're losing their platforms. Well, cry me a fucking river, because you haven't earned the right for anyone else to give a damn. Please click the big red button to subscribe. It really helps me when you do that, and click the bell to allow notifications so you never miss a new video.